Welcome back to the MMA Fight Realm, and I'm back fresh off another 10-2 week, another undefeated prelims, and I'm feeling good. Thanks for tuning in. If you are new, it's your boy Chris. UFC Vegas 87 is taking place this weekend, and I'm gonna give you guys my picks and predictions. Starting off with the prelims. Now, there's two guys on this card who don't currently have an opponent. It's Ludovic Klein and Vinicius Oliveira. If they do get an opponent, I will give you guys my pick and prediction via Instagram. So follow the Instagram, guys, at MMA Fight Realm. I got my picks, live odds, fight announcements, UFC content. Check it out at MMA Fight Realm. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of these picks. Let's get into it, guys. So leading off the card, we got Loik Radzhabov taking on Loik Radzhabov taking on Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady. All right, work with me. These names is crazy. Good fight here, though. Both like to come forward. Both are great at grappling. I think it's really going to be a matter of who's going to win those grappling exchanges. But I do think that I have to give the edge in the striking to Abdul-Kareem. This guy has got phenomenal footwork. He worked for 15 minutes. He was a huge underdog in his Contender Series fight, and he gave his opponent 15 minutes of work. Footwork was on point. He was striking, grappling, matched him 30-27, won every single round, and there was no doubt about it. Abdul is ready for the UFC. So he's making his debut now, taking on Loik Radzhabov, who has had some ups and downs in the UFC. In his last fight against Rebecca, he got calf kicked to death. I mean, he just did not check one of the calf kicks. And for Loik, you know, he's decent all around, but in my opinion, I think he's going to be at a serious disadvantage in the cardio. He's going to be at a disadvantage if he hasn't worked on checking calf kicks, and maybe even in the grappling department as well, because against Rebecca, when he got taken down, he did not have much to offer off his back. And once the cardio gave out, Rebecca was able to control him there. And in the second round, Rebecca was able to knock him out. So I'm telling you, this guy, his cardio's not on point. Was getting calf kicked already, was just not looking good against, you know, Rebecca. And Rebecca, not a guy who we can say has faced, you know, the who's who of lightweight of this weight class yet. So, you know, just like I said, ups and downs. I'm gonna go with Abdul to get this one done by decision or by finish. I think he's live for a finish. He's gonna have even a physicality, like strength advantage. He's just the stockier fighter out of the two, and I think that's also gonna play a role in that fight. Next fight, guys. CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan, taking on Claudio Ribeiro. Now, Claudio Ribeiro follows me on Instagram, guys, so I'm gonna be as nice as I possibly can here. This should be a great fight for however long it lasts, because these two look for a finish. In the process of looking for a finish, they have left themselves exposed. Like, you know, their chins are high in the air, and it's just the way they defend. It's just the way they defend punches. They like to stay in the fire. But for Claudio, that has led to some knockout losses in the UFC. Roman Kopylov was able to land a head kick flush on Claudio Ribeiro, and it just did not look good. Whereas CLD only loss in the UFC was by decision to Armen Petrosian, where he was just going for it too much. And you can see that in his last fight, he's definitely looked more poised. He's improved. I would say out of the two, Christian Leroy Duncan is the more polished fighter. He's the more technical fighter, and he's gonna have to be technical in this fight. He knows, he should know that Claudio is wild and is going to be live for a knockout in that first round. Claudio is definitely stronger out of the two. I would say Claudio should test him in the grappling department. We haven't seen Christian Leroy Duncan offer much when he is getting taken down, so but he is good at working his way back up. I would like to see how Claudio does against CLD, but I can't pick him to win in this fight. I gotta go with the guy who's more technical, has improved in every single fight that he has shown us in the UFC every time he's out there. Whereas Claudio, he's looking more the same. And yeah, I gotta go with CLD in this one to get it done by decision or by finish, guys. Next fight, Javid Basharat taking on Aiemann Zahabi. Basharat is making his return after mopping the floor with Victor Henry. He was just working Victor Henry, and it ended in a controversial no contest because, you know, there was a nut shot. Victor Henry could not deal with it, and, you know, worked kind of weaseled his way out of that one, right? Apart from that, this guy has been looking flawless. I mean, he is mixing it up with the striking well, mixing it up with the grappling. You can say he's one of the new generation of fighters that are coming into the UFC that just are very adept at being good everywhere, literally everywhere. And he's undefeated in the UFC. He's ready for somebody who's just outside of the top 20. And I'm not too sure if Aiemann Zahabi is somebody who is just outside of the top 20. I mean, Aiemann Zahabi will be good, will be a good test in the striking. But as far as the ground, I think there's going to be a huge skill gap there. Basharat should be able to have the advantage in the ground, and that's going to be the difference maker in this fight. Zahabi is a great striker, and he wasn't able to finish Ricky Turcios with his phenomenal striking. But, you know, in his last fight, he goes out there and he gets it done against Orichi Lang. Orichi Lang, we just saw, weaseled his way out of a fight against Daniel Marcos. So again, Zahabi is not facing the level of opponents that we can say we can stamp, you know, Aiemann Zahabi into the guy who's just outside of the top 15. I don't consider him to be that. And Basharat, like I said, this will be a good test in the striking department, but as far as the grappling, he should have the advantage there. I'm gonna go with the guy with more tools. 30-27 Basharat. If not, he should look to sub Aiemann Zahabi. I mean, he's got 3 fights in the UFC. They've all gone to the scorecards, so he should look to show this promotion that he can get a finish. Next fight, guys. Steve Erceg taking on Matt Schnell. Erceg has been fed to the wolves ever since he's come into the UFC. He took a short notice fight against David Dvorak and won that fight, rightfully so, earned him a spot into the top 15. Then he has to defend that top 15 spot against Alessandro Costa, wins that fight, 29-28 decision, dropped the second round. I think it was very clear he dropped that second round, but comes back in the third, wins the third round. Now, taking on Matt Schnell, he gets a shot at the top 10. Matt Schnell, though, has been kind of holding on to that top 10 spot. I mean, he's 34 years old. He hasn't fought in 2 years. And this is, I mean, what a better time for Steve Erceg to get this opponent. Matt Schnell is known for being kind of like an undertaker. He's just coming back from the death. He gets his ass beat, and then he just has this durability where he's able to just outwork you eventually. But after getting his ass beat, you know, let's not forget that. And I'm assuming he hasn't fought in 2 years because of injuries. You know, he goes in there, he gives it his all, but he's just not looking good. If Erceg is not ready for 15 minutes, that's where I see Matt Schnell being a huge problem for Steve Erceg. But if Steve Erceg is ready for 15 minutes, which he has been in his last 2 fights, has not showed a cardio issue, and He's also got 6 submissions under his belt before coming into the UFC. Matt Schnell, already known for being a grappler, he's got 3 submissions out of his 6 wins in the UFC. They're going to match each other very well in the grappling department. Steve Erceg is going to be the better striker, the younger fighter. I got to go with Steve Erceg in this one. I think he's going to outclass Matt Schnell, and he should look to get a finish. Another guy who is also seeing the scorecards more often than not in the UFC. Next fight, guys. Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Bekzat Almakhan. Now, I don't want to waste too much time here. The pick is Umar. I mean, no disrespect, bro. Like, Bekzat Almakhan is a good opponent. He's a great guy. He's a great MMA fighter. But this is too much too soon for a guy who's making his debut in the UFC. The UFC couldn't find a fight for this guy, Umar Nurmagomedov, and that's unfortunate that he has to get fed Bekzat Almakhan. I mean, 17-1, but all 17 wins are not under the bright lights. So it's no knock on Bekzat. I just really think this is too much and too soon. Umar Nurmagomedov was last booked against Corey Sandhagen. That's a top 5 opponent, and nobody was counting him out. So there's that. You know what I mean? Umar Nurmagomedov is the pick. He should get it done by finish here, however way he wants. But Bekzat, very talented guy. If you take a look at his fights, he will be beating a good amount of bantamweights in the UFC. Too much too soon for this fight, though. Umar Nurmagomedov by finish, guys. Next fight, Eryk Anders taking on Jamie Pickett. These two are at completely different levels, in my opinion, but what they do share in common is that they both haven't had a win since 2022. Now, I think Pickett is just, he's getting finished by guys like Jordan Wright, Dennis Tululum, Kyle Dawkins, where Anders is actually finishing guys like Kyle Dawkins. He's going to decision against Marc-Andre Barriou, where he had moments in that fight, but he lost. But he had moments in that fight as well, Pickett wouldn't have moments in those fights. I think these two are fighting to stay in the UFC, and Anders knows he's 34, not getting any younger. If there's any time to push for a title shot or a shot at the rankings, it's now. And Pickett, he's on the other side, I think, of the spectrum. He's 2-6 in the UFC. He's really hoping he can make a comeback here, but I just don't see it. I mean, he's a striker who tires out and doesn't really have a plan B if that doesn't work out for him. He's not really much of a grappler, and Eryk Anders is going to be the better grappler here, the stronger fighter. He's going to mix it up well, and if it goes to the scorecards, I see the wrestling from Eryk Anders playing a big role. So he should look to ground and pound finish Jamie Pickett here, and I think he can get it done in the later rounds, but I'm going to go with Eryk Anders, safer way to pick it by decision. All right, guys, Eryk Anders to get it done by decision. Next fight, Muhammad Mokaev taking on Alex Perez. Now, another one where I think 2 different levels here, but Muhammad Mokaev has been on a roll lately. This guy, 4 finishes in his 5 fights in the UFC. And are they the most exciting? Not really. But if you aren't a fan of grappling, you'd say he's boring, But he's not seeing the scorecards more often than not. And a lot of people knock him for being, put in dangerous places in his fights. But it's because he's taking chances. It's because he's looking to finish his opponents. And that's the reason why those things happen, Whereas other fighters like, Pantoja, and I don't mean to knock them, but they don't put themselves in that danger zone as much as Mokaev will willingly. you know, but he's getting it done. 4 out of 5 submission finishes. So he's not seeing the scorecards. Taking on Perez here, who is making his regular 2-year layoff appearance in the UFC. I mean, if you look back at his record, this is becoming a pattern now. He last fought in 2022, and then before that, he fought in 2020. And despite all that time, he's only 31 years old. So hasn't really affected, you know, father time much. But both of the times that we have seen him out there recently, he's been subbed. And he's been subbed in the first round against Deiveson Figueiredo and against Alexander Pantoja. High level opponents, I will say. But Mokaev is another high level grappler. Another guy who can submit Alex Perez and early. Mokaev is hungry. He's younger. He's undefeated. He's been active. And he looks better every time he's out there. Perez hasn't beat anybody in the current UFC roster. I don't know how you can go and pick Perez in this fight. So the pick is clear. Mokaev by submission or Mokaev by decision. He's going to look to put on a show. He knows that Moreno and Royval fight, they kind of fumbled. And if he puts on a finish here, he could get a spring up into the title shot and maybe see himself at UFC 301 in Brazil against Pantoja. So he's going to want to put on a dominating performance for the promotion. Next fight, guys. Tyson Pedro taking on Vitor Petrino. I believe this is the co-main event. So looking at the odds for this fight, I am going to completely disagree with the price we're getting Vitor Petrino. You know, considering he's getting a proven opponent and he's only got 3 fights in the UFC, while Pedro already 10 fights in the UFC. But Petrino is the type of guy who can get this one done and get it done early and look like a minus 1,000 and make me eat all my words. So I could be very wrong in saying that he's got finishing power, great grappling. This guy, he's not intimidated. He comes forward. He's young, 26. He's undefeated. I mean, his potential is sky high right now. And minus 305 favorite against Tyson Pedro. That's probably why. You know, Tyson Pedro, we can all agree, is just outside of the top 15 in light heavyweight. And Tyson has had great moments. He's got a finish against Paul Craig, a finish against Khalil Rountree. I know that was a long time ago, but hey, he's getting it done. Like, he's getting it done against big names, and he's really questionable hiccups in the UFC though. You know, just look, man, Mauricio Shogun Rua at far out of his prime was able to finish you in the second round. That does not look good. And then OSP, far and out of his prime, he's able to finish you in the first. That does not look good. And then you come back and you bounce back. You look good against Anton Turkalj. And don't get me wrong, Anton Turkalj is not the guy, is not Vitor Petrino. Let's just be honest. Like, Vitor Petrino is way stronger. His pressure is just too much for all of his opponents. He showed that he can submit you. He showed that he can knock you out. I mean, his versatility is there, and I think he's going to be too much for Tyson Pedro. He's not going to fold under pressure. The UFC knows what they have here in a star in Vitor Petrino, and he's starting to show us that he can really dominate guys in the grappling if he is ever at a weakness in the striking. So give me Vitor Petrino to get this one done by submission or by decision, guys. I think he's going to put on a show like he always does. I mean, you can never count this guy out for a finish. Next fight, which is the main event, guys. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of these picks. Shamil Gaziev taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. All right. This is very odd that Gaziev is already getting a main event in his second fight in the UFC. But, you know, like, I say that because when you main event a fight night, that used to like really mean something. You know, it used to mean that you've had some wins in the UFC, and now the promotion wants to push your name out to the fan base more than, you know, what it is already, and show that you deserve a 5-round fight and high caliber opponents. You can see how the UFC feels about Shamil Gaziev, only his second fight in the UFC, and he's already in a main event against Biggie Boy Rozenstruik. And, you know, it might be rightfully so. This guy's 12-0, undefeated. 11 out of his 12 fights, he's been able to finish his opponents. So he's not seeing the scorecards, guys. He's violent. He seeks to finish. That's what I think is the reason maybe why he's in the main event here. The UFC also cares about that violence. They want you guys, they want the casuals, they want everybody to tune in to the violence. And Shamil Gaziev is a guy who will take chances out there and will look to finish his opponents. The skill gap in the wrestling here is going to be ridiculous, guys. Biggie Boy just got ragdolled against Jailton Almeida. Ragdolled. And like he just didn't have anything to offer. Finished in the first round. Biggie Boy got ragdolled by a guy who was a former light heavyweight. Shamil Gaziev is ragdolling true heavyweights already. He's not, this skill gap in wrestling is just too much for me to pick Biggie Boy. If you are picking Biggie Boy to win this fight, you're counting on him and his one punch power. That's what he's got, and that's the difference maker maybe in this fight. But to say that what if that doesn't finish Gaziev, what does he do? He's fucked. I mean, what does he have to offer after that? He's a kickboxer who is just, like, I don't even know. Like, he's just a fish out of water when it comes to the grappling. And Shamil Gaziev is gonna expose that. He should look to expose that. Finish. I see Gaziev winning this one, ground and pound finish or by submission. And I don't see this one going 5 rounds, guys. So give me Shamil Gaziev maybe first round finish as a prop. But as far as betting, guys, I'd save my money for UFC 299. We have potentially one of the greatest cards that we're ever gonna see in our lives. I mean, UFC 299 is stacked with very good matchups. We're gonna make a lot of money. UFC 299. This is another one at the Apex, so chalk it up to the Apex. Let the bookies have it. Save your money for 299. Enjoy this card as a fan. And there you guys have it. Those are my picks. Like the video, comment, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.